Hi everyone, we are back on Go Local Live here in downtown Providence, kicking off your Friday afternoon with the familiar face, Paul Roselli. Thank you for coming in today.
Oh, thank you. You're kidding. Thanks to Go Local Providence and Go Local Live for doing this.
Well, I appreciate your taking the time. I had seen you up at the State House yesterday. Of course, the news that was posted this week, Rhode Island DEM issuing some air pollution permits pertaining to the proposed new power plant in Barberville, saying that it does in fact comply with state and federal regulations, but you've got an interesting vantage point on this.
Well, let's go back and put this in context. So this report is actually a moment in time. It's a throwback to almost 4 years ago, maybe even a little bit more, when their application was actually constructed. So Invenergy, way back in 2014, 2015, maybe even a little earlier, put together an application, and in that application they had to subscribe to the current regulatory authority granted not only by the state of Rhode Island but by the federal government. DEM is acting on behalf of the federal government for certain of the regulations as they apply to air emissions. That moment in time, it was like putting a dagger through a clock and saying that's it. The clock is not going to move. And this report is a reflection of that. This report has to be taken into context that 4 years ago, when they applied, the air emissions were X. And that's what they did. In this report, and I've got a copy of it right here, they made sure that all of their dots and T's were crossed and dotted when it had to do with those particular emission standards for that particular time. And you can imagine 4 years ago, things were a little different in terms of where we were with climate change, global warming, severe weather conditions, and reports that have been worked on for almost nearly 2 decades. Those reports have started to come out. Even the UN report issued a couple of days ago about the decline in species as a result of both what we're doing and what's going on with the fossil fuel industry.
Were you surprised by this ruling by the DEM?
No, not at all. I'm not surprised at all. Again, they're under the authority as well to look at what was the existing conditions, what were the standards. These are not moving targets. I mean, you can imagine any business coming to Rhode Island or anywhere, and all of a sudden, as soon as they apply, the targets get moved around. So they were under the gun too, and I have to state that I know many of them around the Department of Environmental Management. They're experts in what they do. They are being hampered and hamstringed by those regulations that were issued 4 years ago.
And so talk a little bit about the process. Obviously, we've had you on here a number of times to where things are at. You said folks in Barberville weren't necessarily surprised about this. How does this play into the bigger picture as the power plant looks to move forward and opponents look to stop it?
Yeah. So this was a given, and I have to go back 4 years ago, and again, when you stop that clock, when you said this is the line in the sand that you have to cross, we all looked at that and said that's going to be an easy thing for them to cross, to go over.
You knew that check was going to be checked off, if you will.
That box on that particular item was going to be checked off, and most likely they were going to be given their permit.
So what are the next hoops and hurdles that the power plant has to go through now as it's looking again to gain approval, and opponents are keeping a close eye?
So the biggest hurdle right now is how the 3 members, and we still only have 3 members on the Energy Facility Siting Board, how they react to not only all of this information, but current information. Unfortunately, they're only authorized to look at the information that was presented to them 4 years ago. Does it meet the standards that were issued 4 years ago? The 2 caveats in all of that are 1, need, and 2, whether or not the power plant can meet the environmental standards. Does it do any more environmental harm than good? We all believe, and many of the environmental groups and nonprofits all throughout the state and region, by the way, all believe that the power plant will do more environmental harm than good. It's in the worst place possible, and if they talk about need, A lot has changed in the last 4 years. You've had many of those people on your shows about Vineyard Wind and the wind projects, the solar panels being reduced at a price that's affordable to just about anybody, and all of the regulations that have been going through in terms of reduction of air emissions. So I think we're on the path that in Venergy, this particular project will be denied. I think we're on that path.
Well, I appreciate your taking the time. As I said, we spoke at the State House again in light of this recent ruling by DEM, and Paul said he wanted to have his chance to put it in some perspective, so I said, come on to Go Local Live. So thank you so much, Paul. We'll let you go around the corner.
Right.